Just give me a text message. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. Hope you're indoors and getting some air conditioning. Welcome to this virtual statewide briefing for volunteers and other supporters of the recall to remove Gavin Newsom from office. I want to let you know that you can ask questions at the end of the program. All you have to do is in your Zoom app is click raise hand and we can call on you, but make sure you unmute your microphone so that when you're called on, you are ready to speak. Also, it's also possible to just simply type into the Q&A button in Zoom a question, and I will be taking those questions as we wait to queue up people on the video. So in the Zoom app, just click raise hand, unmute yourself, and we'll call on you. Or if you would like, use the Q&A feature to type in your question. If you're on the phone but not on Zoom, you can hit *9 and that will raise your hand. We can call on you then. You'll hear a tone when it's ready. You're ready to speak. If your question is not answered or if we run out of time, you can always email it to us, info@reformcalifornia.org, and you will get a response within 24 hours. That's info@reformcalifornia.org. With that, let's go ahead and get started. When we started out with the recall, everyone thought that if you get the signatures, Gavin Newsom would be ejected from office. Everyone, in terms of the general public. The recall process does not just start and end with getting 2 million signatures, which is quite a feat. The signatures only entitle us to call a recall election. It does not remove him from office. What it does is it places that question on the ballot. It calls an election on that issue, and voters have to vote to remove him from office. So I know that there's a lot of folks out there, even people who signed the petition, even some of our volunteers who thought, well, we already got the signatures. He should be gone already. What's taking so long? They perhaps did not understand the process, that there's a multi-step process that we go through. And we are in the middle of that, and we're now entering the final phase of that process, which is frankly the hardest part and the most important part. So the first thing I want us to do is to make sure that we explain to people how a recall election actually works. You sign the petition. If you get enough signatures, it entitles you to call a special election. In that special election, the ballot will have 2 questions on it. The voters must vote to remove Newsom from office, and that is question 1. So the first question on the ballot that you'll see is a simple yes, no question. It will read, should Governor Gavin Newsom be recalled from office? If you vote yes, he's removed. If you vote no, he's retained. He gets to stay. He gets to fill out his term. So that's why it's important in this election to make sure that we clearly state, vote yes on recall. You have to fill in the yes bubble. Again, we have to explain to voters how to fill out the ballot. It is not an easy, ballot that they're going to receive. Most of us might say, oh, well, it's simple, right? No, we must be clear and precise as supporters, as volunteers, when we're talking to voters, to let them know that you will get a ballot. It wasn't just the signatures, but we will get a ballot because we're calling an election with the signatures. When you get your ballot, make sure you fill in the bubble for yes on recall. Yes on recall. Now, might I add, Gavin Newsom's supporters are going to have a hard time because they have to tell their supporters to vote no. And a lot of their voters may not understand that either. So our challenge in this campaign isn't just to make the case against Newsom, but it's also to make sure we explain to voters how they fill out their ballot. And don't leave it just don't leave it as an assumed thing that they know how to fill out that ballot. The first question, they have to fill in the bubble, yes to recall. There's a second question. The second question says, in the event that a majority or greater of voters vote to remove on question 1, which of the following candidates should become governor? On that second question, which by the way is on the same ballot, it's a instantaneous thing. It happens at the same time. On that second question, there will be about 80 to 100, maybe 120 candidates listed on the ballot. It'll be a very long list of candidates. Candidates will be listed in a randomized order based on a random poll of letters of the alphabet. That's how they will list the names. So there will be about 100, 120 names on the ballot, and people should be encouraged to vote for a candidate of their choice. We'll get into the question on how do we get behind one candidate in a moment and whether it's even relevant. But if you look at the bottom, let me explain how the math works. If we don't get to 50% on question 1 for the yes vote, nothing else matters. Newsom wins. Newsom stays in office. So on that first question, we must get 50% plus 1. When we get 50% plus 1 of that yes vote, Newsom is done. He's out of office, and that's already a big victory. The second part of the calculation will be who will replace him. And on that question, it is not a 50% requirement. So whoever gets the most votes raw wins. So here's my little example. Suppose in 100 candidates, we get maybe 30% of the vote spread amongst, say, 91 of the candidates. And each of them get like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 fragments of votes. But these other candidates stack up. AOC gets 6% of the vote. She's upset, but at least it's still higher than her IQ. Bernie Sanders gets 7%. Mao gets 8%. Vladimir Lenin was the popular choice amongst Democrats. He gets 9%. There's a lot of Republican candidates that ran. The top 3 were Margaret Thatcher at 11%, Abraham Lincoln got 12%, and Ronald Reagan got 15%. Guess what? Assuming we get 50% of the vote to recall Gavin Newsom on question 1, Ronald Reagan is now the governor. So he would win with just 15% of the vote. This is important for us to educate voters on that. On our side, we're hoping to get behind one candidate, and we'll explain that in a moment. But for Democrats, let them know, look, you don't have to vote for a Republican. You can vote to recall Newsom, vote yes on Newsom, and then you can vote for a Democrat of your choice. You like AOC, you like Lenin, you like Mao, hey, vote for whomever you want, but vote yes on that first question. That is a very compelling message to Democrats, and we'll talk a little bit more about how you sell a Democrat on voting yes on the recall in a moment. But it's important that we all understand the mechanics of the recall election, because guess what? As volunteers in the Yes on Recall campaign, you are going to have to explain this. You will have to educate people on how to fill out their ballots. Don't fill them out for them. It's not legal, but only the Democrats do that. But what you should do is strongly work to make sure that you're clear with instructions, that you walk people through it, that you explain it. Do not assume that they know. If they say, well, I already signed the recall, I don't have to do anything, right? No, you got to look for that ballot in the mail. You got to get your ballot. You got to get all your friends' ballots, your neighbors' ballots, your family's ballots. Get everyone to fill out the oval for yes. And then they can choose the candidate that they like the most. So that's the first part of the process, how the recall election works. One ballot, 2 questions, all simultaneous. The first one has to get 50% to remove Newsom. The second one can be any percentage, whoever gets the most. Okay, when will the recall election be held? The official date has not been announced yet. However, we expect that it'll be done very shortly. In fact, we expect probably in the next 2 weeks, we'll have a clarity on the election date. But from everything that we are seeing that we have a real problem with an early recall election. Democrats are all talking about an early recall election. The media is laying the groundwork for it. Why? Now, the media says, oh, it's because Newsom has this in the bag. He's real confident. No, I'll explain in a moment why he shouldn't be confident. Some of them are saying, well, we want to avoid bad developments like wildfires, brownouts. If you have it in October, we could have wildfires in the fall, or we could have brownouts or blackouts. It's like, look, we live in California. Newsom is so inept, he's going to have a problem no matter what he does. So it's not because of external factors. The only reason why they want an early election is because they have all the campaign cash that they need right now. They've got the media on their side right now and forever. They know that by giving us more time, it'll allow us to raise money, $25 at a time from grassroots donors. They know that it allows us to go out and recruit volunteers and contact voters. Time was needed for us to get the recall signatures. Time is needed for us to win the 50% plus one vote. They know that. That's why they want a shotgun election for the recall. So probable dates. It has to fall on a Tuesday under state law. So we're looking at anywhere from September 14th all the way through October 12th. It could be later, of course, but if they're doing an early election, these are the dates that you're probably looking at. Now, once they set the date, then we have to go on the calendar and back it up for our campaign 30 days. Why 30 days? In an all mail-in ballot election, every voter gets their ballot 30 days out of the election. The mailings will go out with the ballots from the registrar of voters office. And so if the election is September 14th, ballots will start hitting mailboxes on August 15th. It'll arrive 15, 16, 17, 18, a couple days here or there. But that means that voters will start voting a month out. It also means that, take a look at today. We actually could be out there having votes cast on the recall in 60 days. So we have to be ready. We have to organize quickly. It's a short fuse. We don't have a lot of time. And then, with each of those dates that you push out, we can add an extra week of lead time. So right now it's 60 days out. Well, if the election is September 21st, we get 67 days lead time. If it's September 28th, we get 74 days lead time. Not a lot of lead time. So we cannot take the summer off. We've got to get our friends to volunteer, to sign up, to get ready, and to build our entire grassroots infrastructure. After the ballots hit the mailbox, then we'll have 4 weeks to go out, knock on doors, text, email, call, whatever we can do to knock on doors and get people to fill in their ballots and return them with a yes vote. 4 weeks is not a lot of time to get 5.5 million votes, which is what we expect we're going to need. And so we need, the goal that we've set is we need 100,000 volunteers to make that many contacts in a 4-week period to get our votes in. So let me start by saying, as we spend the 4 weeks, and of course, as we lead up to that, trying to convince voters to be ready to vote yes, I want to make sure we're all armed with the talking points, the best talking points that will convert voters who are undecided into yes votes, and will motivate yes voters to make sure they're not lazy, that they don't forget, will motivate them to return their ballot. So yes, there are many reasons to recall Gavin Newsom. But the common theme that I think we all should be emphasizing in our messaging is that Gavin Newsom is the poster child for what's wrong in California. He represents a broken, corrupt system in Sacramento. I like to call it the Sacramento swamp. And it's both political parties that are responsible for the dysfunction in Sacramento, but we have one supermajority party, the Democrats, that have run the whole thing. Gavin Newsom has been brought up in that culture, has been anointed in that culture. He's never really worked a real job in his life. Everything's been given to him. And he is in that cozy, corrupt, incestuous swamp of Sacramento. And his behavior epitomizes that. His failures on all the issues we're about to talk about is a product of a broken Sacramento system. The only way to, clean up the Sacramento swamp is to elect a governor who basically is elected because we all are rejecting and rebelling against the whole system. So removing Newsom sends a message that we want to shake up the broken system for the entire state. Couple examples. Well, let's hang the draconian lockdowns around his head. We're quote unquote back to normal, right? June 15th, but not really. But even though things are starting to reopen, our best message point is that when tested with the most difficult challenge of our time, the pandemic, Gavin Newsom was a coward and he was incompetent. He was a coward because he chose fear over proper policy. He didn't rise to the occasion. He chose fear of locking everything down, shutting all the businesses down, telling us all to hide out in our homes. Other governors didn't do that. Other governors actually did their job. They balanced the challenge of COVID-19 with keeping people employed and keeping our kids in school. And so we had a coward and an incompetent person as governor, and we've paid the price. Millions of jobs destroyed, and many of those are never coming back. Children that lost a full year of education. He did not follow the science. He used draconian meat cleaver interventions to hurt our economy and hurt our children with no benefit, really, on COVID. Hypocrisy. As he shut all of us down, he went out and partied with lobbyists who lined his pockets with millions of dollars. And this is exactly the example of Sacramento Swamp has a double standard. They think that the rules don't apply to them. They talk about defunding police, but they have private taxpayer-funded security guards. They talk about gun control, and yet they have security guards that will never surrender their guns. These are people who literally are so arrogant that they believe that they're above it all, that the rules don't apply to them. And so hypocrisy is a key issue on his personal conduct. As it relates to going forward, are we going to recover our economy? No. This is a guy who supports massive tax hikes, sales tax hike, income tax hike, property tax hike, gas tax hike. He's raising the gas tax again July 1st. California has become completely unsustainable. We cannot afford to live here anymore. Millions of people have fled the state. We've lost net population primarily because people cannot afford to live here anymore. Even Democrats know personal friends and family members that have left the state because they can't afford to live here. So the tax hikes will make it impossible for us to actually rebound our economy. Obviously, the regulations also kill jobs. AB 5, a ban on independent contractors, but a whole host of regulations that Newsom gladly imposes virtually every month as the regulatory burden gets harder and businesses flee. How about incompetence? This is a guy that was asked to get masks during COVID-19, and he went and gave $1 billion to the Chinese and purchased N95 masks for $5 each. This is a guy that wired $250 million to a company that didn't even exist, Blue Flame Medical. It was a fraud operation without even checking. This is a guy who, when he shut down all the businesses and everyone got thrown out of work, didn't bother to make sure that they got their unemployment benefits. 1 million people on average every week have been on the unemployment rolls without their benefits. They are eligible for benefits. They're waiting for benefits. They've got food to put on the table, and Gavin Newsom has been incompetent in getting them relief. Oh, but you know who he's been able to get money to? Criminals in prison who did fraud to get $30 billion of unemployment benefits. Let's talk about social issues. The schools are some of the worst in California. We are dead last at the bottom of school rankings. His closures of schools hurt minority children and low-income children and children with learning disabilities the most. He sided with the unions and continues to side with the unions in requiring all children to wear masks in schools, whether they're vaccinated or not, even children as young as 2 years old. Try putting a mask on a 2-year-old and keeping it on. This is a guy that has really let our children down. And now that they've lost a year and a half, how are they ever going to recover? On illegal immigration, he caters to illegal immigrants, open borders, taxpayer-funded benefits, sanctuary cities. Rampant homelessness, he says he's solving homelessness. No, he's throwing good money after bad. He's giving them housing at a very exorbitant price. He's buying hotels, and they're becoming dens of illegal activity and drug use. Wildfire mismanagement. He hasn't managed the ecosystem because he's caved in to radical groups that demand that we not thin the forests or do any sort of fuel management. Criminals, he released 76,000 criminals. And this is a biggie, Newsom has gone soft on sex offenders, signing a bill last September allowing sex offenders who molest children as young as 14-year-old girls and boys molested, and their attackers no longer are required to register as sex offenders. That was Gavin Newsom's bill. Brownouts in gas. Our energy grid is not producing enough energy because of all of his mandates and regulations. We import 33% of our energy in California because Gavin Newsom refuses to allow energy production. And of course, we all know about the $5 gallon gas and no road repairs. Now, that's just a litany of some of the top issues. Don't get lost in the forest looking at the trees. We have to communicate the forest as a whole. That's why I talk about the broken Sacramento swamp as a whole, and then talk to voters about what their concerns about, and then explain on their concerns individually, whether it's homelessness or gas prices or schools. Gavin has done so many bad things that he literally will hit the hot button issue for every voter you talk to. You have to ask the voter what is the biggest concern they have. And chances are the biggest concern they have is something Gavin Newsom has managed to screw up. Here's some common objections you're going to hear from voters. Oh, but Gavin Newsom gave me a bunch of free stuff, even this $600 I got in my bank account this month. Because he's been on the tour giving out freebies and playing a low-rent game show host on TV. He's a clown, but he's giving free stuff out, and it seems to be persuading some. Here's the best response. You know what? Gavin Newsom only started giving you free stuff, not when your job was lost, but when his job was put on the line. When he shut down the economy and you lost your job and your neighbor lost their job, Gavin Newsom didn't care. He didn't help you with unemployment benefits. He didn't rush to your defense. He didn't, look at other states reopening and allow that same thing to happen here to get your job back. No, he didn't care. Only when he got recalled from office and his own ass was on the line did Gavin Newsom even bother to reach out to you and give you a little bit of money. Plus, do you think $600 is going to replace your job? That job may not be coming back because of his bad policies. He's a typical politician that only is there for you when he needs something, not when you needed something. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one is, but I'm a Democrat. I will never vote for a Republican. I hear this is a Republican-led effort. Hold on. First, we have a bunch of people that are supporting this. Gavin Newsom is so incompetent, he has brought all these people together. Bernie Sanders supporters who lost their job as waiters and waitresses. Latinos who lost their job because the small business they worked for went under. Asians who saw their children not being able to get into a college that they earned a place at because of his backing of affirmative action. African Americans who are upset because of rising crime because Gavin Newsom has released criminals into their community. When you look at who's supporting the recall, 30% of the signatures came from Democrats and independents. And we didn't really target Democrats and independents too much. We mainly targeted the Republicans. The Democrats and Republicans that signed the petition came to us. They found us to sign the petition. We are seeing in the polling that 20% of Democrats are supporting the recall, a majority of independents, a majority of Latinos, 1/3 of Asians, 1/4 of African Americans. This was all based on the John McLaughlin poll a few weeks ago. But when a Democrat says, I'm never going to vote for a Republican, that's okay, sweetheart. You don't have to vote for a Republican, but you got to vote yes on recall, because you got to send a message that even Democrats that screw up as badly as Gavin Newsom, there needs to be a discipline. There needs to be accountability. That's why we vote yes. And then you can always vote for a Democrat to replace. Let me talk about candidates real quick in terms of everyone says, well, what do we do to get behind a candidate? We need a better candidate to win. The answer is no, we don't need a better candidate to win. It would be helpful. And I think that situation will resolve itself, and I'll explain why in a moment. What we need to win is to get 50% plus one on the yes side on recall. That's simple. And that's where keeping the focus on our messaging as to why Newsom needs to go. We'll figure out who's going to replace him in a moment. But first, Newsom needs to go. Don't worry about trying to convince someone to vote for so-and-so or this and that or such and such. The yes vote has to get 50% on the first question. So that's where our singular focus will be. And as you know, even in a fragmented field, even if we don't get behind one candidate together, because of the way the recall works, we have a great chance of getting one of our better candidates to the top of the pile. But secondly, I don't think all candidates are in the race yet. We also have a couple more weeks to see how these candidates go out and court us. I will tell you that there is a good candidate jumping into this race. And if they get into this race, I think a lot of the grassroots will say, hey, that's the candidate we want to get behind. I don't want to get too far into specific candidates here. That would really not be fair, because this is not a candidate forum. And we are staunchly at this point agnostic on candidates. We have not endorsed any candidate for the replacement. That might come if the movement gets behind one candidate and we feel like 80% of the movement feels like this is the candidate to back. But for the foreseeable future, I see that we're only going to be focused on the yes on recall side because of the math that I explained earlier, where we can win with a 15% candidate. But I do believe that we will find, that one of the candidates will end up rising to the occasion, impressing us, and we will end up getting behind that candidate. So how did the recall qualify? Because that's really an indication of where we need to go moving forward as we begin our drive to get yes on recall at 50%. Well, the recall qualified against all odds because of the people, because of the grassroots, because of the volunteers. The media was 110% against it. They mocked it. Just like they're mocking the recall now, they mocked the signature drive. Yes, the GOP establishment ignored the recall, only got in at the very late part of the effort. There is a good argument to be made that the GOP establishment never wanted a recall because it did not benefit their anointed, favored candidate of all the paid consultants. So we're really not going to get a whole lot of help from the media, and the GOP establishment may or may not get aggressive to help us. The paid efforts were supplemental. They were helpful. There was mailers that were done by Rescue California. There were some paid circulators that were put out there. We didn't really have Facebook because they had a ban on ads, and that really hurt us. But the paid efforts were helpful, but supplemental. Who got it done? It was one-on-one communication by volunteers. That's how we did this. And that's how I believe we're going to be able to get the yes vote and harvest the ballots for our yes vote side. Multitude of groups are involved in the recall. All can and should be doing everything they can to work to recall Gavin Newsom. Some may just kind of phone it in and pretend. We need to get all of them actively, energetically, enthusiastically involved. Obviously, Reform California has been one of the largest donors to the recall of Gavin Newsom. And we continue to file our finance reports with the state of California, publicly available. And all of our activities are detailed on yesonrecall.org. The California Republican Party has contributed. They've said that they are going to make this their top priority. County Republican parties also are going to be doing things locally. Really encourage your local party to get actively involved and coordinate the Get Out the Vote operation in their area. San Diego, Orange County are doing a great job. I met with Riverside County 2 weeks ago. They're gearing up. Lots of counties doing good stuff. But make sure you talk to the county chairman or executive director or board members in your county. Ask them, what are you doing for the recall? How are you coordinating? How are you going to get out the vote? When are we going to do the door hangers? How are we going door to door? All those things. Ask the county party what they can do. That's their job. That's their role. Republican Governors Association is raising money and helping the recall. Individual candidates can help the recall by doing ads saying vote for me and vote yes on recall. Rescue California is a committee that's been very active. California Patriot Coalition, which filed the original petition, has been great at getting those signatures. Now that we're moving into the campaign, all these groups need to join together and work together. There will be other committees. There may be other donors that show up and set up their own committee, and they do an ad or they do a radio block or maybe do door hangers or whatnot. What I want to encourage everyone to do is ask committees, what are you doing? Where are your finances coming from? Where are you filing with the state of California? Now, let me be perfectly clear. If anyone starts creating drama, you tell them to knock it off. Put a sock in it. Newsom is our common target. There is no room for ego. There is no room for personal agendas. Sadly, there have been some individuals that have been so fixated on infighting that they've been very disruptive and counterproductive to the movement they claim they want to support. My message is simple. Put up or shut up. Do something positive. Put your money out there to get the yes vote, because that's what some of these other groups are doing. And all of our efforts are public and filed with the state of California. So you can complain and ankle bite, or you can get involved with the fight. Which are you going to do? And the reason why I communicate that to you, the volunteers and the grassroots, is that if you see this happening, even if it's a fellow volunteer that's sniping at someone, remember, tell them, hey, we got to work together. No ego. He's our challenge. He wants dissension in the ranks. He wants prima donnas and egos. So we can't have that. I've always said, when people criticize, let it roll off your back, be clear about what you're doing, and just go out there and do good work. All right. You know, ankle biters get real embarrassed when they see that their ankle biting hasn't really persuaded people, and they've been proven to be a liar because people out there see the great work that's being done. So get behind a group, work with that group, make sure they're positive and collaborative. And if they're not, you may be with the wrong group, and that leadership team may be, I don't know, too filled with their own ego to really be effective, collaborative leaders at a time when we desperately need them to do that. Enough said. So how are we going to deliver our message? Well, I wish I had $50 million like Gavin Newsom to buy TV and cable. Did you see his latest ad? It's out today. Saying that he's giving free stuff away and that stop the Republican recall and extremism. I wish we had the money for TV and cable. We will have some TV and cable by our affiliate groups. It'll be limited, but here's why I don't want you to worry about us being outspent on TV and cable. People get their information from digital platforms, lots of social media, lots of text, lots of email. They also are persuaded by friends. And that's where you are so critical. The volunteer efforts are going to be absolutely paramount to winning this. In fact, I will take you 100,000 volunteers. If we reach that number, I will take that any day over fancy TV ads. Because think about what 100,000 volunteers can do. They can probably reach between 30 and 50 people over 4 weeks at least. That's 3 to 5 million people with a personal contact from a friend. No TV ad can compete with a personal contact. We'll try press conferences. And of course, as I mentioned, candidates can help us by running for office. That's why I say the more candidates running, the better. But the grassroots movement has to be expanded. 100,000 volunteers. We're on track right now to do a 1 million Reform California personalized mailers by August 1st. Thank you for the Republican Women Federated and Republican Women of California who are doing all those handwritten mailers. Lots of carpal tunnel, I know, but it's working brilliantly. We're getting amazing responses to our town halls. We are holding a series of town halls across the state. Chances are you got one of those personalized letters and are attending this town hall because a local town hall may not be in your immediate area right now. But we are training and equipping volunteers with talking points and the tools they need to be effective volunteers and deploy. Deploying volunteers will be one-on-one conversations everywhere. That's up to you just to go and just talk to everyone you know. We will be giving you access to an app either through your county Republican Party or through Reform California if your county does not cover an app. Most counties do use their apps. Our app is I-360, the same thing as San Diego Republican Party, but other parties have different apps. We will be using and supporting all those apps to get you a list of voters in your neighborhood to knock on their doors and go door to door. The voters in the neighborhood are likely going to be independent voters or mixed households, people who are Republicans living with independents. We will never send you to a Democrat home. In fact, we don't want them to know that there's a recall. Let them know it's Christmas, okay? We will then send you another advisory when we get in the last week of the election. That advisory will be a list of voters in your neighborhood who have not yet returned a ballot. What we need to do is knock on their door and remind them to return the ballot and strongly encourage them to vote yes. So that's where our ballot harvesting push will be. The first week is to convince them to vote yes. The last week is anyone who hasn't voted yet. We go back to the door and we say, you got your ballot, you got to vote, you got to vote. You can text and call from home and it doesn't show up with your phone number. It shows up with our campaign number. So it'll be anonymous. Okay. You can call and text from home and nobody's going to get your number. It's always going to be coming from our campaign, but we need you to do that so that people have a personal interaction. And of course, post on social media. We're getting censored by Facebook and Instagram, but the more people that are posting, the harder it is to censor. Oh, and by the way, your assignments will arrive every week in your email. If you sign up at Reform California as a volunteer at yesonrecall.org, sign up as a volunteer at yesonrecall.org, you will get the weekly Friday email with all of the assignments and an update on what's going on. We also have a very active election integrity program going on. I'm thrilled that Rick Grinnell is coming into the election integrity fight with a full-throated program with Fix California, a great operation that he's setting up. And he's going to focus like a laser beam on election integrity issues. I know the people over at the California Election Integrity Project California, which is a 501c3, are supporting an important lawsuit and are appealing a recent decision in that lawsuit. A number of other nonprofits, Transparency Foundation, others are doing legal work in advance and filing lawsuits or supporting lawsuits in the future. And of course, we will have an aggressive integrity watch effort with our volunteers. We'll go into that specifically closer to the election once we get a better sense of what rules and regulations they're going to use to conduct this election. So your tasks, number one, this week and next week, go out and recruit 5 people to sign up as a volunteer on yesonrecall.org. If all of the existing volunteers get 5 people, we'll bust through the 100,000 number in no time. But get 5 of your friends to sign up as a volunteer at yesonrecall.org. Second, share at least 3 of the recall posts that we have and that we'll send to you every week. Every week we have a news item in our email that has 3 or 4 articles. Post those throughout the week so that people see the message points that we're conveying. You can forward our emails to your contact list. It's real simple. Just copy and paste in the BCC line, forward the email that you get from me on Friday of every week to those individuals. If I send out an advisory midweek, forward that as well. We do need to start calling from home. So when you're ready to start calling from home, contact our volunteer coordinator. We will get you set up on the app, and we will get you a phone script. And then finally, door-to-door canvassing will start that 4-week period out of the election. The initial knock will be the week that ballots drop, just to convince people to vote yes. The final knocks, plural, will be, we will knock on a door until they turn in their ballot. We will not stop knocking until we get every ballot in our target universe sent back. Also, free lawn signs are available at all of our in-person rallies, and everyone who attends a rally will be given 2 lawn signs to take back to their neighborhood. If you also sign up and walk your neighborhood, we will also endeavor to get you at least 5 lawn signs to share with neighbors. So that's the website, yesonrecall.org, yesonrecall.org, to sign up for all of that information. If you live outside of the in-person rally locations, you can buy lawn signs, T-shirts, as well as bumper stickers, all online at yesonrecall.org. I would also be remiss if I did not urge you to continue to contribute. $25 at a time is all it takes. If you can give more, please give more, but we are grassroots funded.